Hi friends, it's Lisa Hetrick, illustrator for Gina K Designs, and I'm so grateful you could join me today. I have a super fun graphic stamping watercolor poppy card to share today using my stamp set with Gina K Designs today and always, and we're just going to have some super floral fun, and I'm mixing it up with this sweet friendship set. I love the sentiment. Our sweet friendship refreshes my soul. That sentiment just speaks to me. And this cute little set, of course, it's florals. I love it. So I'm going to kind of mix mash these two sets up and have some fun. And we're going to use some watercolor techniques along the way. But I wanted to share first the color palette that I'm working with. So I've got Gina K Designs Blue Raspberry, Jelly Bean Green, and Lemon Drop. And I've got two Zig brush pens that I'm going to be playing with. Green Shadow and this light green. These are nice greens that are really compatible with that Jelly Bean Green that has a lot more yellow in it. I've got a piece of A2 sized cardstock from the Gina K Designs white cardstock. And I have a piece of my favorite watercolor paper on the planet for Papercrafting, and that's the BLUEY watercolor paper. So we're going to be doing some rough watercoloring on that paper, so we need an absorbent paper. Okay, I've got my Connect glue, I've got my Zig brush pens, I've got some pop dots and the unicorn of white pens, the Uniball Signo. I'm not sure if I'm going to use it because we're going to be changing things up a little bit, but we'll see. I've got everything out, and yes, there will be a little bit of fussy cutting, but no worries. It's going to be great. Okay, so first I want to start out by creating a little bit of a green background, but just a really light wash of color. So one of the things I want to share about using watercolor paper and the Zig brush pens is that the Zig brush pens are intense. They want to go right into that watercolor paper, and they go right into the textured areas. So the big bumpy parts of the paper, it goes in and it makes a nice harsh line. No bueno. Don't love that. So I like to use the Zig brush pens by just putting a little bit down onto my mat and then using my water brush to mix up that color. It's a dye, so you can get a lot more washy kind of look with it by using it this way. Now, if you're using it straight from the pen, you gotta be okay with the fact that you're going to have those harsh lines, which is fine. And I've got one right here in the center, but that's okay because it's going to get covered up. But I wanted to share that if you're feeling like you're not having success using some of these water-based brush pens and you're using them direct to paper, this might be why, because you're not going to get really good blends. They definitely go into the texture of the paper and they sit there really quickly. So unless you've got water right on top of it and you're ready to just blend it out, it's going to give you that mark that may not feel good. So just a little aside there. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. I set that off to the side, and I've pulled my Lemon Drop and Blue Raspberry colors because I'm going to get started on stamping the main floral image, which is this cute little daisy image here that is more of a solid. And we're going to start out with working light excuse me, light to dark. So I've got this solid daisy piece here, and I'm just stamping it down with some Lemon Drop and just kind of shifting it around because I am going to be cutting out these images. So I am just randomly stamping them on the piece of Gina K Designs white cardstock. And now I'm going to ink up the larger floral, the daisy floral, in the blue raspberry. And I'm going to layer that over top. Oh, I love that blue raspberry. It's just such a fun color, just such a happy color. So I'm layering it on top of what I've already done with the Lemon Drop, but I turn the stamp a little bit so that we get that Lemon Drop daisy kind of just coming through. And remember, because the dye inks are transparent, or have those transparent watercolor-like qualities about them, it makes it super easy to do this layering technique with a light to dark, because that lemon drop's going to come through. It's even going to come through that blue raspberry and give us a couple, like, another color with the greens, and you can kind of see it, especially when it dries, but you can see it here where the lemon drop and the blue raspberry are kind of meeting each other for the first time, having some fun. They are coming through with that green tone. I love that. I just love being able to color mix with my dye-based inks, and I know I've said it in other videos, but I get really excited about it. Okay, so I fussy cut those images out, and I have them right here, and they just look so fun. Now, my watercolor piece is now dry, and you can see how that color just faded back. And that's the thing about watercolor and any kind of water-based medium. It will look pretty intense when you're working with it, but it will fade back a little bit. So you need to know that. So I've got that really, really nice yellow-green wash there that's going to be the base for layering these beautiful flowers on top of. Okay, so we're moving right along, and I'm pulling the fern-like image from the Today and Always stamp set, and now we're going to do some stamping on top of the watercolor paper, and these are going to be the layers that are going to be behind the flowers, and I'm using jelly bean green here. They're going to be behind the flowers, so they create this second layer of texture and dimension. So we've got that watercolor layer underneath, that washy green, and then we're layering the stamped images on the next layer. Mind you, it's all on the same layer, but it gives us that illusion of multiple layers. So I just kind of lay in the daisies here and interconnect them a little bit, just to kind of lay them into the design here and just see where they're going to sit, so that I can play a little bit more with where I'm going to position the other stamped images. So I'm going to go ahead and glue down the center one and just get that in. And I'm putting a little dot of glue on the center of each of these florals. And I'm just moving it around a little bit. You don't need a lot of glue, because I want to be able to lift up the edges of the flowers and interconnect them. So you can see that I'm only laying in a little tiny bit of glue here so that I can connect the two flowers together, so that they look like they're layered together in a bouquet. And one goes behind the other. And we've got this next layer of texture and dimension, but it's very lightweight. Now, you could use your pop dots or any kind of foam dots and pop them up if you like things to be poppy. I'm just going to layer this in because I really want to get that feeling of it being a one-layer card without adding a lot of height to it. Okay, so now that I've got the three flowers in position, and I'm digging it, like it, kind of flicking them around a little bit. Now I've got some positioning for where I'm going to put the additional images to layer them in. To create some more movement in the card, we've got this nice centered piece with three beautiful florals. Now I just kind of want to connect some of the elements around them just to create this whole look and feel of the card. So I'm just bouncing back and forth between the fern images and the other pod-like image that's in my stamp set, and bouncing back and forth between the jelly bean green and the lemon drop. And whoo, look at how that lemon drop, when it starts to layer over top of that watercolor piece, you're starting to get another color. I also had a little bit of jelly bean green on my stamp that I didn't clean up, so it kind of comes through a little bit, but I'm digging it. I love those little surprises of color that pop up on our projects that we didn't intend to happen. Okay, so I'm just using the fern again with some lemon drop. Now, these two colors, the lemon drop and the blue raspberry, make such a beautiful color of green, and the jelly bean green, just such a great combination of colors. So they complement each other so well. Okay, so around the images here, I've layered in all of my stamped pieces, and now I want to go in with my sentiment. that our sweet friendship refreshes my soul, and I am going to go rogue here. Normally, with watercolor paper, I'm sticking it in my Misty and I'm hitting it 2 times. But I've inked up this little petite stamp really well with that amalgam ink, and I know that I was going to be able to get it in 1 pass, and I did. Love it. Okay, so I'm using my Connect glue I'm using quite a bit of it on this watercolor paper so that I can get this whole layer laid on top of this piece of cardstock. So it's going to be like a white on white, but that layer is a watercolor paper on top of the cardstock. So now I'm just going to add some finishing touches, and I've got some Nuvo drops here. I've got the yellow and the white Nuvo drops. You could use a gel pen or whatever you prefer, some gems, and just adding a little bit of extra texture and dimension to the center, adding a few dots on the edges of the flowers just to add another little extra texture and dimension without adding a lot of weight to the card. So it really is kind of still a 1-layer card with a little bit of texture, but the illusion of all of these different levels of texture because of the way we stamped out the card, and just adding just a little bit here and there. And these are the 2 Nuvo drops that I used, and I really do enjoy using those. So here is what the card looks like. I'm really digging it. I love all these layers. Love this color palette, and it just works so well together, and it's so complementary with each other. I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial. Thanks so much for joining me. Please consider sharing the joy by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.